Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Anime Social Club once again, like we do every single week. Joined today with, as always, my good anime friends, Kuronuma, aka Bridget,
Hello.
and Cold Waffles, aka John.
Yo,
bringing you some more riveting anime discussion like we do every single week on this podcast. And as you guys can already tell, there have been some improvements to the stream. One, I have hidden the Discord messages part because I realized I've almost leaked DMs I didn't mean to leak. And two, the chat is on the stream. And we also have a couple goals, which if you guys haven't noticed, we hit affiliate. Yay! Congratulations. Open yay. So what does that mean? That means you can subscribe to the channel. If you have Amazon Prime, subscribe for free. And you guys can donate to us. We have a donation goal at the top and then subscriber goal at the bottom. So yeah, these are just a couple little aesthetic pieces that we're adding to the visual aspect of it. So if you're listening to this in audio, you can also watch this on YouTube. Just search Anime Social Club, or you can find this on any podcast streaming platform at Anime Social Club. And then for you guys watching on the Twitch channel, if you guys scroll down, you guys can see some very awesome commands that you can all use if you want to find our profiles, look at the playlist that was playing all the anime songs before. If you want to see where other our podcast is also linked, we also have that all in our Twitch description and our YouTube description below. The descriptions on fucking podcasts are atrocious. Like, that shit's like extremely hard to click on or even do anything with, so I don't even bother with that. But anyways, so today the topic is classic culture and must watches. I almost forgot my own topic title. I know I just said it backwards, but that is irrelevant. What is relevant is what we're about to talk about today. So, but before we get into that, how are you guys doing? Kuro, Waffles, you guys having a good day?
yeah, it's a great day actually.
Nice, nice.
I'm enjoying my ramen right now. Got cheese and pork in there. Yeah, we're good.
Dude, you sound like you're doing amazing. Unlike Kuro, who seems like she's about to die because for some reason she's been up for the past
34 hours.
34 hours. She is a committed anime viewer.
Yeah, it was pretty much for anime.
Yeah, I feel it. Yes, that has already been changed. Just kidding. I'm an idiot and didn't hit update information. There we go.
You're supposed to respond to it out loud. Anyway,
we live and learn. That's just my mind flow. I see things and I speak. So let's go ahead and get settled in here. Like I said, we're going to be talking about classic culture and must watches. And today we have some questions that, we have kind of really over the years of watching anime. We've had this discussion more or less in some way, shape, or form with people as to, what do you need to watch, or what is a classic anime, going back and forth. So I don't know. Have you guys had the discussion like pretty often, or have you even had it before? We can start with John.
Sorry, I was mid-bite. Yes. Yes, I have. I've had a lot of classic discussions. Honestly, I've had it only a few times about anime, but about like other medium or media, yeah, all the time. Especially like Western film. It's like very hotly debated. And then the biggest one I've had it with is with hip hop. But yeah, definitely it applies to anime. My opinions on pretty much every form of media is relatively similar. I have the same criteria for what defines a classic. So I'm pretty excited to see how you guys are wrong with your opinions.
Cool. Well, it's okay to be delusional. Anyways, Bridget.
Yeah, I've had the discussion of like must watches quite often, but I've never really talked about classics and like what I consider a classic and that kind of topic. So I'm excited to do this.
Nice. Yes. And I am, as you know, always ready to have a discussion or debate or argument or heated exchange, whatever you guys may call it. Either way, I'm always there. But today, my delusional co-hosts will then try to justify their positions and ultimately see that they are wrong. So let's go ahead and start with the first part of the podcast, which is where we define classics. So what makes anime a classic? So let's go ahead and start with Bridget, and then John, and then myself, and then we'll try to expand on that question as much as we can. But we are going to have a more in-depth discussion towards the end. We just want to give some context to everything. So go ahead, Bridget.
Okay. So I kind of split my definition of a classic into 3 parts. Basically, these are just the 3 things combined together that I believe make up a classic. The first being that it was either influential on the medium as a whole, on the culture surrounding anime, or its particular genre. It is popular and well received at the same time. Doesn't have to be like 10 out of 10 masterpiece, but it is both popular and pretty well liked evenly. And then finally, I think it needs to stand the test of time, meaning that it needs to keep that consistency for a long period of time. I gave an estimate of about 10 plus years. I think it's pretty solid if an anime has been popular consistently and keeping high ratings consistently for a long period of time, that it could be considered a classic.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. Alrighty, on to John.
So I sort of controversially, I disagree on the timeline, and this is where I get into the most arguments with other people, is that I believe the only criteria time-wise for something to be considered a classic is that it's been around long enough for the hype to have been like completely died down. So you know that people don't like it just because of the novelty. So like for me, something could have just come out in like 2012, 2013, 2014. And it could still be considered a classic because people aren't talking about it anymore because there's new things that have replaced it. So I think that is long enough to judge whether or not it's going to stand the test of time. Of course, you can never tell. You can never tell if like it's going to age well.
That's kind of what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, like to really know that, you'd have to wait like ridiculous amounts of time, like 20 years, because techniques change over time. But yeah, so that's where I mostly disagree. I agree on the other stuff though. I think it should be something somewhat influential. I don't place as much weight on that as most other people though. I mainly just look at quality, and I kind of look at the anime in a vacuum, in that like I think if I can't watch it today and enjoy it, like if it didn't age well, I don't consider it a classic anymore. Even if it was really well received back in its day, I don't consider it a classic because what's the point? Like if I'm not going to be able to enjoy it today, then to me it's not worth being mentioned.
Cool. Nice. Well, I'm going to stop calling you guys by your real names and go by the other names. I don't know why I switched it up like that. Thank you, Waffle. Anyways, okay, cool. Well, let me give my little 2 cents on it. So when it comes to an anime being a classic, I really look for really 3 different things when it comes to like a show specifically. And the first would be, is it innovative, right? Did it do something different at the time that it was made, and does it kind of still have that same feeling of innovation years down the road? 2, is it timeless, which I think we all agree on that. Can it still be watched today and enjoyed? And then 3 was what I totally forgot, but something along the lines of still being influential today to some degree, having some realm of like quality, even though it came out from like a really long time ago. Like we can still appreciate it for the limitations that it had at the time, or it uses what is available to like a high degree. So that would be anything that would release relatively recently, with like in the past 5 to 10 years, considering how animation has progressed over time. But cool. So now that we have, kind of an idea of what anime makes anime classic for us. Let's go ahead and we're gonna break it down a little bit further. So we're gonna go into is it more important? Is it more about the quality or the impact of the show that makes it or that would consider it a classic, or is it really like a combination of the two? But and then a question from one of our guys, Levi, and this kind of expands on it a little bit more. He says that my main one was what characterizes a classic anime in your guys' opinion. Is it the popularity mixed with how impactful / influential it is? I'm just curious on your thoughts on this. So does it really need to be a definitive, does it have to be impactful and influential for it to be considered a classic? Or is the popularity more so? Because you could have something that's popular, but maybe not necessarily influential and popular. Influential and impactful. So how far do you guys think that that is a necessity when it comes to classic? And we'll start with Waffle.
I don't think popularity matters at all, is my opinion. I think the impact does matter, but I don't think popularity matters at all, because that's something that's going to change over time. It's just the way things work. You can look at certain anime were really popular at the time and really well received, and today they're still well received, but they're just not popular. Not that many people watch those anime, and that's something we're going to talk about later. But then you have other classics that were not so well received at the time, not so popular, but now lots of people watch them and everyone says they're great. So I don't know. I think the popularity doesn't really matter, because that's something that's going to fluctuate. It's something that varies with time. But the impact is something that you can always see. As long as some time has passed, you can see how it impacts the anime and its peers, to come. But my thing on this is neither of those matter to me anywhere near as much as the quality. I think the impact is maybe 10% of it for me, and then the quality is 90%. I really think that the anime has to be really good, and I think it should be good now, like I was saying before, in a vacuum. And it's really cool if something's impactful, but I don't think that, at least to me, it doesn't make it more of a classic if it doesn't have the quality to back that up. I'll still appreciate it. I'll respect what it did for the culture, for the medium. I'll acknowledge that it's really impactful, but I don't think it's more of a classic because of that.
Cool. What about you, Kura?
Yeah, so I do care about popularity slightly, but really not that much, just because there are some shows that I would consider a classic that, again, are not necessarily very popular, but are super well received. I think it can play a part, but it's not the definitive answer. But I think I value quality and innovation together most. Something that I'll get into later about newer series, but it can maybe seem a bit difficult to understand how a newer series can become a classic. But I think really, if any series just does something innovative, even within its own genre, and it's a really quality show that's well received, I think that can classify it as a classic if it just does something that sets it apart from others like it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I would say for the most part, yeah, I would definitely agree with the timeless and innovative part. But I would say that the popularity just really doesn't have a factor on it at all, just because of the cycle of seasonal anime and how we're always going to have something that's popular but not necessarily good. And the impact and influential part of it, I think it helps in determining whether or not it deserves to be a classic, but it's not necessarily a necessity for it to be it. You could have a show that was impactful or influential, but it has all these other great things, but that just helps it to strengthen the argument of why it should be a classic. But that doesn't mean it needed to be it could have not had any impact or influence, but still be a classic show that that did do something for within the anime space itself, in regards to the timelessness and innovative part of it. But cool. Well, now that we have that as well, this is the final question.
I'm going to interject real quick.
No, go ahead.
Something is innovative, though, wouldn't you expect it to be influential? Like if they're bringing new techniques to the field,
Not
shouldn't it have
necess-
some kind of
not
impact?
not not necessarily, because like, so one of the biggest things would be CG. So like you can have shows that use CG but completely forgotten because of the lack of quality that it brought. Even though it was an innovative technique at the time, it could be something that's like forgotten or not really appreciated. But then that's where the idea of timelessness comes in, where even though they had limitations at the time, it still can be seen today as a quality piece because of how much work went into making sure that it held up by their standards and even today's standards as well.
I want to interject
Go
just
for it.
because for me, the term influence in the realm that I use it in when talking about classics is how it influenced other series after it.
Yeah.
So obviously when we start talking about other stuff, we'll get into it. But just like, you know, if you look at certain series when they aired before and after, you can see that series' influence on other shows. That's what I consider influential. So a show can be innovative, but not influential. Like another series might not do that same thing or base it off of that. So that's how I differentiate the two.
Yeah, totally. And let's go ahead and go on to this last question, which is probably gonna be the most controversial one. How old does an anime need to be in order for it to be considered a classic? Let's start.
I'll
with
negotiate on
Kuro.
that number.
Well, Kuro,
Negotiate.
I said 10, but like there are some series that like I can tell that aren't really 10 years old yet that I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much a classic. Like I know it's going to be, or if it isn't already. So yeah, I think I will agree more with what Waffle said, that really just if it is, you know, the hype has died down and it's not really talked about as much anymore, but still just as well received in later years, then that really just constitutes its aging. If you, like you said, if you can enjoy it now still, then it is continues to stand the test of time. But like I wouldn't say like a series like a year or two old is
Right.
a classic yet, because some of those series are still very hyped. Some of them are over, so they have other seasons that will be coming out as well. So
I think something big on that, at least for me, because that's like my timeline or whatever, my definition of how long it has to be. It's changing, because it used to be longer. I think like anime would take longer to die down because it was harder to get anime, you know. So people, we'll talk about more about that later. But right now it's so easy to get the newest anime all the time, and you can get like 25 shows that are happening right now. So I think anime are getting forgotten about a lot faster than they used to be, because there's just always new stuff coming out. So for me, that makes it easier to tell if something's a classic, because if something's able to survive through this gauntlet that they have to run, where there's like 100 shows every year, then I think you can clearly tell after even like 5 years. I think you can tell like this is a classic.
I would agree.
And then like you said, I think within that 5-year window, like anything newer than within the last 5 years, you might be able to say you can make a guess, you know, like I think this is going to be one, but I don't think you can say it's a classic until it's been, for me, like 5 years.
I would agree.
Yeah, I would say like 5 years is a good like mark for it, but it's still like, it's kind of hard to tell probably even like at that point, because even if you do watch something that came out, you know, like 5 years ago, whatever that show may be, over a long period of time, like I would say like it increases the legitimacy of it being a classic the more time it has behind it, because then that just shows how much it's weathered the whole slew of shows that are coming out every single year. Because I mean, there's things that we can just say off the top of our head, where if someone says, hey, what's a classic show, what's a good representation of the medium, we will shoot off a couple things right off the bat, and all those things that we'll mention didn't necessarily come out probably within the first 5 to 10 years of each other, right? So, but yeah, I would say if I had to give like a definitive timeline, I would agree. Like it's 5 years is probably a good indication, especially now that we're having this whole slew of anime, like you said.
Um,
Yeah, I think a good follow up to what you just said, because that's a really good point, is
mhm.
that, and I agree. I think the older something is, and still being a classic, that gives it more weight. What do you
Yes.
guys think? Like, where do you place age in terms of this spectrum that we've talked about? So, like, we have quality and impact and age. Where would you put it? Like, do you value age just as much as quality, or just as much as impact, or like, what do you think on that?
I do. I was going to say, because like when we get into it, when most of us began thinking about what we consider classics, the first few were all pretty old series, I would say. And so I think typically, at least in my mind, and it seemed like and you guys is too, that we may consider some newer series to be classics, but our first instinct is much older series because it's their classic status just feels stronger, maybe because they have held that position for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would kind of put it like somewhere in the middle. Like if the make or breaks are timeless and innovation, and then the supporting, like the supporting parts of the argument are the quality and impact, then age would lie somewhere in between there. I would say that would probably be the thing that really tips the scale on probably legitimizing its place as quality or as a classic or not. Because sometimes you could be a little bit iffy on whether or not something should or shouldn't be, but then age can really say, oh, like you can see something and be like, yo, this was pretty good. Like you could think that something came out, oh, maybe did this come out like 2-3 years ago, and then you look, you're like, oh shit, it came out like 15 years ago. Like what the
Mhm.
heck. Like then yeah, this is definitely a classic. So it's really that thing that pushes it to one side or the other, definitely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. But has that ever actually like happened to you? Out of
Yeah.
curiosity,
Well,
did you ever think someone was 2 years old and then find out it's 15?
not to that extreme, but like when I first watched the Miyazaki movies, I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
oh my god,
Yeah,
this
I
did
would
this
agree.
movie
Yeah.
come out like like last year? And then
I
I
think
would look, I was like,
movies
what
in
the fuck?
general can do that because a lot of movies were just so ahead of their time with like their art and animation
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and the
yeah.
voice acting. Like it was, yeah. So I can see that. Okay.
I would say when I was watching anime back in like my early days, it was still like pretty late in the game anime wise. So like I would be watching something from like 2000 like 6 or 7, and I'm like, oh, this must have just came out. And it had been a good 3 or 4 years
Oh
since they
yeah.
had come out. So because at that time period, the animation style it was pretty much the same for a good few years. So didn't look
Yeah.
that much older.
Yeah, and for me personally, it's what happens more often than not will be, hey, did this come out last year? And then it turns out it's like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah.
way more common when it comes to trying to catch up on a lot of stuff,
Hmm.
and things just get recommended at you. And that's definitely a big plus in determining that whole whether or not it's a classic or not. But so now that we have a little bit of a definition for a classic, let's go ahead and dive into must watches. So there is a little bit of a difference because people like to associate classics with must watches, and they may not always necessarily coincide with one another. But let's go ahead and we're gonna pick out and discuss some notable must watches, slash classics that we may consider. But before that, would you? So the way that I see it in my mind is that um, every every like every classic is a must watch, but not every must watch is a classic.
Yeah,
Would you guys agree?
I
yeah.
disagree
Why would you disagree?
because I think a lot of classics are not must watches.
I
Like
okay.
I honestly, I would say most classics are not must watches.
So the how do I okay. So they are must watches in the sense that it should always be given at least the first season for it, because if I'm saying something is a classic, it's because it did something that hadn't been done before within the time it released. And not only did it do that, but it held up over time as well, you know. And in whatever way innovated, I think it would be something that, like, hey, you should definitely see, you know, a little bit of the origin of where X, Y, or Z came from, you know. So
or you could watch this other newer anime and see it done better.
Correct, but I probably would have agreed with you before I watched Hanabe Renmai, which I think I would have loved that show when I first came into anime, more so than I would have now, because I've already seen so many things that made it that did the formula so much better. But
that to me means it's not a must watch.
It would be a must watch.
I don't consider that a classic.
I would only, but I would only consider that like something that, like, newer anime fans that are coming into the space, like, I would recommend that to them, you know, because it's,
to me, well, maybe we should just talk about what a must watch is, because to me, a must watch applies to everyone, whether you're new or old. I think everyone should watch, everyone must watch, like, my list of must watches. Like, if you haven't seen something, I think it should be like one of your top priorities to watch something that I consider a must watch. That's how I view it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think of must watches like when I first started watching anime, like must watches were pretty strong. Like, it was like, oh, like, you have to see the show to, like, really, like, appreciate medium, but it's not necessarily classic, you know. Like, half the shows that I remember being must watches when I first started were not, like, classics, and I don't even consider some of them classics now, but they were just important and things that would help integrate people into the medium. But I mean, I kind of get what you mean by saying that not or all classics are must watch. To me, I think all classics are must watch in the sense that you should consider watching them. You don't have to, but it's a must watch as in, oh, this is a classic that it really did something influential. I should maybe consider watching it at some point.
That's not a must watch, though.
I mean, I'm saying give it a that's why I said like a half must watch, you know. Like, I think they're like you should just keep it in mind, consider, because like there were, you know, I'm still now getting through watching series that are considered classics, and years ago I was like, no, I think I should watch these, but it just takes a really long time to watch all of these shows, so
right,
some of them may not take priority, but
I like what Levi said in the chat. They're should watches. They're all should watches. You should watch classics.
Yeah,
you don't have to watch.
Yeah, you should. Yeah,
I like that. Okay, so let's go through John's must watch list, and through the power of technology, I'm able to display this on stream in real time. Ooh, magic. Cool. So this list is pretty much final, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
it's not going to change.
Let me go ahead and copy that. Let me paste. This is going to be cold waffles. Cold
waffles.
Cold waffles must list. All right, let me go ahead and paste that. All right. Sweet. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. So I know there's gonna be some overlap. So if there is overlap, like, those will be just skipped, or we'll just agree on them. Because I don't think we're gonna, like, say what. I think we're in a pretty good consensus that, hey, this is something that, you know, you should probably most definitely watch. But let's go ahead.
It's not a problem. You definitely need to watch everything on this list.
Okay.
That's how I look at it.
And
when I was making this list, I started out with like a little over 20 things that I was first thinking, okay, everyone needs to watch these shows. But then I was cutting things out, and I was like, you know what? Not everyone needs to see this one. Not everyone needs to see, like, I realized some of these shows are just either something that most people have seen, or a show that I really like and I think everyone would like. But to me, these are the shows where if you've seen these, you can engage in a discussion about anime, and you can have an idea of how anime has, what the roots of anime were and how it's changed throughout the years. And I tried to pick a list that has a relatively diverse genre set. So just now, facts that I don't know about Onizuka. The reason that's in there is because I consider Onizuka to be like the must-watch comedy. And without that, I think my list is very, very serious and dark. So the main purpose of Onizuka in there is because I think it shows some anime comedy that some of it, depending on your ability to appreciate, older comedy, you might not like it that much. But none of these are things that I think everyone will love. Like, there are definitely some things on this list that some people will not like at all. But I think that everyone should watch it. Not should. Everyone must watch it anyway, even if you don't like it. Just because it'll better inform you and allow you to have better opinions about the anime that you watch now.
Okay, cool. So yeah, as you can see from their list, and there's a reason why mine's not gonna be up here, because I'm gonna dive even harder into my point. But yeah, let me add that for you as well.
Oh, and I just say my list for the people who are audio only. It's Neon Genesis Evangelion, Princess Mononoke, Perfect Blue, Serial Experiments Lane, Great Teacher Onizuka, Akira, and Cowboy Bebop.
Nice.
All 7 of those I consider absolute must watches.
Yeah, and out of all of these, I would not disagree on. I do plan to watch Great Teacher eventually, but I've either seen the rest of these or they're already on the list, and
I've seen all of them except for Onizuka.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen Perfect Blue and Onizuka. That's it. But I'm saving Perfect Blue for when my club gets to it. But Kuro.
Yeah, and UEC says I disagree with Cowboy Bebop. I actually don't like Cowboy Bebop at all. It's a very controversial opinion, but I don't like it. But I still put it on my must-watch list because I think it's just such a universal classic, and then it introduced a new way of having action anime. This new like type of hero who's kind of like on the edge. He's not completely moral and all that. And I think it's a very influential anime, and I think watching it will better inform your opinions on the anime of today.
Yeah, totally. And then for Kuro's list, I'm kind of interested. So you put Wolf's Rain on your must-watch list.
Yes.
You don't think that over time you'll replace it with like for being something you've seen so recently?
Yes.
Why would you tell someone to
have
like
explanation?
watch?
Because how I did my must-watch list is, again, based on what was a must-watch when I first started watching anime. Hold up. Fakukari, we'll get to that. No worries. I have that. But anyways, these were series that were must-watches when I first started watching anime. Like, it was a title that really stuck out to me, and especially like Wolf's Rain for years. Like, I didn't know a lot about other anime, but I had heard of that one, and it just, I don't know, it just gave me this vibe that I was like, I do need to watch this some point. Took me forever because that's just how watching anime is. But it is a title that has been in my brain for a very long time, and so I really took that into consideration. That one and another title on my list are two that other people may not necessarily agree with, but they were just really prominent titles in that I remembered when I first started watching anime. So
cool. And like I said before, my must watch and my my classic lists are I pretty much intertwine them like together.
Yeah, mine's mostly intertwined, but there's a couple missing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just move your list a little bit to the side. I know this is going to be kind of hard to maneuver.
Kuro is inside of Benji.
Come on, bro. I'm so little.
Okay, so my list. Okay, so as you guys can see, couple things that aren't included on their list. I some people may not like that I put Yu-Gi-Oh as one of my must-watches.
Very questionable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the main reasons for it is because I feel like it's one of the very classical shonen-esque type shows that is very different for what it was trying to do at the time. Like, yeah, you had Pokemon and Digimon, but a lot of these different types of shows really played on kind of like these similar tropes, whereas Yu-Gi-Oh, like, it was a game that they played, and it was not only a game, but it was like very different. Like, there was not a lot of anime that uses like this game concept and executes it as well as Yu-Gi-Oh does. And for the most part, I've never really not enjoyed watching an episode of like first season Yu-Gi-Oh, right? That's the like one of the like pillars when it came to like my experience with anime as a whole. But
so is that what you consider the must-watch part of it? Just the first season?
Yeah, just the first season. Yeah, just the first season. Everything after that could definitely questionable, but just the first season, because it's just so different. Like, I can't really name, like, the only other anime that really comes to mind. Yeah, there's that other one that's like popular, but I've never seen it. But was Kakegururi, which is like it's a very game centric anime where they play games, right? But in Yu-Gi-Oh, they don't just play like poker or blackjack or whatever. They're playing their own game that they made for like the show exactly, and it has rules that for the most part, it does break them, but it breaks them in a sensible way where they try to add some realism grounded in reality.
Sensible.
Yeah.
Sensible.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's like, it was a show that was shown in, and it came from Shonen Jump, which is for kids, but the way that they explain it, you're like, okay, yeah, I could totally see that. But it's a fun must watch. That's what I would say. And then Golden Boy, I put there. I probably would have replaced it with Great Teacher, but I saw Golden Boy, and that was one of the first ecchi comedy shows that I've ever seen. It was like one of the first I ever saw, and it had such an impact on me because I was like, I've never seen anything like this. And
there is nothing like it.
Yeah, and I remember it even to this day. Like, it just hasn't left my mind, and it's just such a quality show that like would definitely like I feel like most people, even if you hate ecchi, would still enjoy it. That's how good.
Well, it depends how, because I've shown it to some people who they just can't get past the ecchi in it. Like, if you don't like crude humor, you're just not gonna like it. But I do think it is the funniest anime I've ever seen. I love Golden Boy. That's my favorite comedy. But the reason I put Onizuka instead is because I think Onizuka is more approachable and it's more impactful for the medium.
Yeah.
I think Golden Boy is the better show to watch if you want to laugh. It's only 6 episodes. They're all on YouTube. And the humor is never going to die. I think the humor in Golden Boy is more relevant than in GTO. But yeah, I love that you have it in your list, though, because that is like, I love Golden Boy so much.
Yeah. It was like, it was like pretty much a no-brainer for me, because that's literally the first thing that came to my mind. And then the other two, which is Steins Gate. If you want to know time travel done well, because time travel pisses me off when you fuck it up, Steins Gate does it extremely well. If you want something that integrates time travel and it does it on an amazing level, Steins Gate, 10 out of 10. Even just media in general, it gets it right on so many levels. That's just an appreciation. And then obviously I have Monster on here. I've never seen Monster, and I know, putting something.
I also put it on my list originally, even though I haven't seen it either.
But it's on there because how much people, the impact of that show versus Death Note, I think it's greater on a person's anime experience as a whole rather than Death Note itself, because Death Note kind of killed itself when it got into the later halves, where you never really hear that about Monster particularly. and I do plan to see it because it is a must watch. Like I'm going to watch the show, but I just by fact of notoriety, I think it deserved to be on this list. Cool. So one more time, we're just gonna read through the list really quick. So
I think we should talk about Evangelion because none of us have talked about it, but it's on all of our lists.
Yeah, it is. There's 2 series that all of us have on our lists, which is Neon Genesis and Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
So I think we should talk about that.
Well, okay, yes. we'll talk about this, and then we're gonna lead that into the more of the classic discussion, which we have a couple questions for.
Yeah. So I had when I had made this list of must watches, and it ties into classic, just the number one thing that immediately came to mind for both is Neon Genesis, and it was far above anything else. It was absolutely Neon Genesis. I could honestly care less about most other things in terms of just, I don't know, it just feels so much more important.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like if you're only going to watch one anime ever, I think it should be Evangelion. And I don't even like my first watch of Evangelion, I was not a big fan. I'm watching it again right now with my club and I love it, but honestly my first time through I was like, man, I don't like any of these characters. Now I realize you're just not supposed to like any of the characters.
No, you're not.
But like at the time I was just like, man, what is this? But now it's great. But yeah, I think if you're only gonna watch one anime, like that's the one to watch because there's just so much depth there. There's so much going on. Like, and then you'll find out like if anime is for you because that's kind of like one of the pinnacles of the medium. Because there's so many different elements happening at once. So yeah, if I had to narrow my list down to one, it would definitely be Evangelion.
So
yeah, Evangelion, like the reason I have it at must watch, like I said, it ties into the classic. It is must watch because it is like the most influential anime, and I really like. I forget where I had seen it, but I basically saw a comparison where they looked at anime before Neon Genesis Evangelion and they looked at it after Neon Genesis Evangelion. And there was a lot of changes in the medium after Neon Genesis came out. It really influenced a lot of shows. It influenced the culture quite a lot. I mean, that is probably one of the first big intros of like a best girl war, which is still controversial today. But like before Neon Genesis,
no, it was definitely around.
It was, but like I just feel like that is
the
most.
Before.
That's true. I feel like it was the most cutthroat of them before.
I think Tenchi Muyo was like 90. I want to say 1990. There's definitely best girl wars over Tenchi.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you guys have seen Tenchi.
It did a lot for the medium in general. So
yeah.
I like okay when it comes to Neon Genesis, like it was I saw it in one sitting and I watched the entire thing all the way through in one night. Like I stayed up all night watching it.
That is a lot.
And so
that's like 10 hours.
Yeah, so yeah, I loved it. Like it was so good, and I had never rewatched it. I mean, you do have the rewatch group, and I'm not the biggest fan of watching things in huge groups, but here is like the thing that just tipped me off and just reminded me is when I popped in for the group watch and I stayed for a couple minutes, the first scene and the first minute, I literally, it took everything in me to not, to pull my, like I had to force myself away from the screen. I've never had anything captivate me that fast and make me want to continue watching so fast. And it just brought up so many different feelings and reactions that I had at the time when I first watched it. And for it to replicate that again, like that is so rare for an anime to achieve that. That's this old, right? And to still have that same impact, like that's crazy. And I just absolutely like adore this show. And it's like one of the first things that really sparked my love for mecha in general. But yeah, it's just like I doubt you'll really ever find anyone that like actually hates Neon Genesis. Like there's just so much good done that any gripes you would have to really chalk up to like personal taste, I guess, at that point. But yeah,
Neon Genesis was like the first anime I got merch for. Like my first anime figurine was Asuka, and
Terrible.
some of my first manga was the Neon Genesis manga. I have Rei and Asuka now. I have two.
That's still terrible.
They don't make Misato ones, unfortunately. Well, we all know she's best girl, but
and then
even Ava is better than both of them. Come on.
Okay, so the other one is Shampoo. So not Shampoo, Cowboy Bebop.
So that one just barely made my list, but I already touched on it, so I'll let you guys talk about it. But that was like the last one. If I was to bump off one from my list, it would be Bebop.
Yeah,
my list is in order, by the way. The way that I read it out, that's the order that I think they are prioritized.
Oh yeah, mine's in no particular order, but
mine's not either.
Yeah, so Cowboy Bebop, again, I watched it in one sitting. Popped in disc after disc, and I watched the dub. I have never seen it subbed. I've only ever watched it dubbed, and my God, Steve Bloom. Oh my God, I have such a man crush on his voice. Oh my goodness, it's like one of the best performances I've ever seen when it comes to dub acting, and it just leaves me speechless as to how well it just hits so many different points, and how old it is and how well it still holds up. Like, I don't think we've gotten another like space adventure type of show that like can even really rival this. Like, yeah, you can say Space Standy, but most things just seem to just copy the formula and then don't really change or innovate on it because Cowboy Bebop just did it so well. But yeah, it's again, it's one of those shows that it just always brings back a feeling of like, oh my God, this is amazing. What about you, Kuro?
Yeah, Bebop was the second one that came to mind. Like, it was like Neon Genesis, thought about it for a good 30 seconds, and then was like, yeah, Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop is not my favorite. I like Cowboy Bebop. I have a poster of Cowboy Bebop, so I do enjoy it. But it's like middle of the road for me. But it's just, I don't know, it's just one of, I've always known, even before I liked anime, like I had watched anime as a kid, and my mom liked Cowboy Bebop, and she doesn't watch anime, but she likes Cowboy Bebop. I had known about Cowboy Bebop for years. It's just something that at least most Westerners, I feel like, know, because it was on like regular TV. But yeah, it's just it's mostly on there for me just because of how innovative it was and different for its time period, and it still stands pretty well. Like, I just watched Cowboy Bebop like straight through for the first time like 3 years ago, and I still enjoyed it. So I don't know, I just think it's really important. I think most people do, whether they like it or not. So
I think Cowboy Bebop is interesting, especially juxtaposed next to Evangelion, because they're very similar in terms of their impact. Like Evangelion, right after it came out, it spawned all these clones, right? So many Evangelion clones. Evangelion definitely has more because it continued. It never stopped. Like Evangelion clones, they started and they're still coming out. Like Darlie and the Franxx.
Darlie and the Franxx, yeah.
Come on. Anyway, but Bebop, it was like, yeah, exactly. In the chat, Trigun, Outlaw Star, even some Gundam series, like Trigun and Outlaw Star though are almost exact copies of Cowboy Bebop. Like, it's the same anime. Like, it just, like, very small details are just changed.
Yeah.
And actually, I like both of those better though, but like the way that they are set up is just like so similar. So I think it's interesting that Evangelion and Bebop are both on the list, and they both like spawn these almost exact clones. Whereas at least the other ones on my list, they don't really have. They're influential, but they don't have clones.
Same.
But that's how big of an influence these anime were. Like,
yeah, that's why they were.
I'd say the only other anime that really did that was Dragon Ball Z, which interestingly got left out of all of our lists. That was the last one to get knocked off of mine.
Well, that's on must watch, not on classic. Two different lists.
Yeah. Well, do you guys want to transition into the classic part?
I just wanted to touch real quick because I did
Go for it.
talk about on my list, I didn't even say it out loud for audio listeners. I do also have Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, which is just another series that I had very much known about since I was younger. And it was a series I didn't think I would like because I was like, I don't like mecha. It's like all about being manly, and I don't think I like that either. But it just did it all so differently from anything else I had seen, to the point where, and just so over the top, that it just worked really well. And so I just think everyone should watch it, because I don't know, for most people I've heard watch it, it ended up being an enjoyable experience, and it's usually a lot of people's first anime. And I also, when we had talked about Wolf's Rain, I just said why I put it on the list, but not why I think it should be on the list. Just because this is an anime from 2003. I just now watched it, and it is still one of the most unique pieces of work I've seen, even now. So that just really registered to me that I was like, people need to watch this, because I have not seen anything like it. And I think that is what, like, solely, like, that it just embodies like a must watch. Like, there isn't anything else like it. It's really special. So.
Yeah. And before that, I want to touch on Gurren Lagann, and then I'm going to have Waffles explain, because we had a question, is that why Perfect Blue? So that's going to be for you. But for Gurren Lagann, I would like just because of how things, like, we can just break this down for days. If we had like a must watch sequel, like a must watch 2, like a second list of must watches, I would put Gurren Lagann there. Only because the other shows on this list kind of help you set up a precedent for why Gurren Lagann should be watched. You know, I think when you just watch it outright, which I don't think is bad. You know, I definitely don't think it's bad. Like, I wouldn't disagree that it also has a spot in the first part. But I would also think about it as, like, for Gurren Lagann, I think if you want to maximize the impact on someone, I think having the pre-context for it is important. Also, it would actually move up to this first round of must watches if that person was like dealing with something, like struggling with something, or had something going on in their life that was causing some strife. Because I think Gurren Lagann is very therapeutic in that sense as well, because it really drives home that message very so powerfully. Yeah, and it like it really hits you, you know, especially if you're in that mind space. So like, not like, I definitely don't disagree that it shouldn't be on there, but I think for me personally, like, there's it's more of a time and place type of thing for it to be on either one. Yeah. So Waffles, explain.
So Urza says, why Perfect Blue? And Perfect Blue is kind of unique on my list. Or I guess actually all the movies are kind of different on my list, because I think the movies, more so than the shows, held up incredibly well over time. Like, I would still say Perfect Blue is the best psychological thriller ever made. And I'm not saying psychological thriller anime. I mean psychological thriller. Like, better than Psycho, better than North by Northwest. Like, Perfect Blue is on another level. And it's so incredible. I've seen it twice now. I will say, though, that the second time I watched it with a person who was only 20. So she didn't grow up in the same time period. So Perfect Blue is a little older, and it has some references to, like, the early days of the internet that might be lost on younger viewers who grew up with the internet. So they're not really familiar, but I don't think it really takes away from the plot at all. Like, it's just the way that they make you question what is real and what isn't is just so masterfully done. And it as a viewer, it really makes you on edge, like, as you're watching it. Like, you feel uncomfortable in your own skin in a way that, like, hardly any other movie I've ever seen has done. I'd say the only other movie I would even compare it to is Requiem for a Dream, which apparently was heavily influenced by Perfect Blue.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Like, an anime having influence in the Western film realm.
I think Black Swan was based on Perfect Blue too. Not based.
It's by the same guy.
Yeah.
As Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
Dang, that's pretty awesome. That's actually really sick. And funny enough, like, most of these shows, I would say, had cultural impact on Western media in some way, shape, or form. Because in a lot of these different interviews that I'm just thinking about it, like a lot of people have stated that, oh, this is the thing that really inspired me when it came to creating this film. And a lot of the time you can really attribute it back to some of these things that are on our list. And if you guys are wondering why movies aren't on mine or Kuro's list, it's because we kind of
movies on my list.
Okay, if you're not wondering from my movies aren't on my list, it's because I went and did something else, and I totally just forgot to add movies. But I'm gonna be honest though, I'm like a movie noob when it comes to anime movies, and only really this year have I actually started. Thanks to my club, I've watched like a anime movie every single week. But I we'll see over time. But I would say if I had to pick a must-watch movie, it would be Spirited Away. That movie is just such a mind changer at any age. It's for, at least for me, it's like pretty much unrivaled to anything I've seen so far. Like I don't think I've seen anything better at this point. But again, I haven't seen.
Just wait, Benji.
I haven't seen. Yeah, I haven't seen. Perfect
Yeah, you gotta
Blue.
see Princess Mononoke.
So,
Yeah.
I already saw Mononoke. Spoilers. Yeah.
And you still say, oh my god.
Yeah.
I just can't even comprehend that.
We could actually do a whole discussion on that.
We could have a Miyazaki like episode.
A Miyazaki fight.
We won't get into it right now.
We won't. Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So, you guys ready to move on to some classics?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, Ghibli Wars. Yo, write that down. Message that, Kuro. Ghibli Wars.
Make a note.
Especially because my second favorite is Kiki's, and nobody seems to. Not that they hate Kiki, but they don't care.
I like Kiki.
Well, we won't get into it right now. We'll save it.
Okay.
Attention, everyone. If you're watching this like a few weeks down the line, Ghibli Wars is probably out right now. So look for that on YouTube. Social Anime Club Ghibli Wars.
Also,
moving on to the classics.
Also, you hit it here first. Okay. If you see somebody else with Ghibli Wars, that means they watched this video and they stole this idea.
Do you like my title?
Yeah.
Plus waffles.
Wait, did I get your guys' list right? Right? Is this it?
Yeah, that's the right one. I just I had the whatever other ones waffles had on my list too, so I just
okay.
Put
I don't have a classics list, so you.
Oh well, it was your must-watch list.
Yeah, I only had a must-watch list.
Okay.
So you can just take mine off, my name off.
Here, I'll type that.
Not co-signing anything.
I love it, dude. Okay, hold on.
Actually, just leave my must-watch list. That can be my classic list because I didn't make one.
Yeah, that's what I thought was your. I considered it a classic list of mine.
All of those are classics to me, so it's fine.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in a second.
Okay, let me dang it, hold on. Copy. But anyways, go ahead. What do you guys have to say? Well, you know what? We'll just start with mine. What do you guys have to say about my classic list? Try to tear it apart.
I don't really disagree with it. I would consider all those classics.
I've never heard of Monogatari series first season.
You mean second season, Benji? Or do you mean Bakemonogatari?
Yeah, because that doesn't exist. So.
Hold on. Wait, is this? That's.
You mean Dragon Ball Z, or just not the entirety of Dragon Ball?
Yeah. So when I was doing my must-watch list, Dragon Ball Z was the last thing to get kicked off, and because I really wanted to put it on there because I wanted to have a shonen.
I didn't put a shonen on, and I'm the shonen.
Okay, it's Monogatari, whatever the hell the first season was. Okay.
So it's Bakemono.
Okay. Bakemonogatari.
Gotcha.
God damn it, dude.
Yeah. First season in like the books, right? UEC.
Yeah, I think so.
I think because I think that's how they determine how it worked when they were like adapting or something. Yeah.
Wait,
so Dragon Ball Z, I think I had it on my list with like the disclaimer through Frieza Saga because it's right around like the first 100 episodes of Dragon Ball Z, and Benji and I were talking about it the other day, and that was like the initial intended end to Dragon Ball Z. And if you think about it, it really is like a complete show at that point. Um, but I don't like putting partial additions to my list. Like all the things on my list are things I think should be watched in completion.
Cool.
So Benji, do you consider like putting Dragon Ball Z? Do you think it should be watched to completion, or like where do you think the must watch
what I
or
was
not must?
curious
Where do you
about.
think the classicness of it ends if you don't think it's the whole thing?
I think the entirety of it is a classic because um, you really get a lot of like the villains in a whole, not GT. That doesn't exist. I don't know what you're
GT
talking
doesn't
about.
exist.
I have no idea what you're saying.
That's not part of Z though. GT is not part of Z, so
Yeah.
Z does not have to be accountable for the crimes of GT.
Exactly. Um, the okay, so there are a few anime that transcend themselves to the point that they aren't even really constrained by anime anymore. And Dragon Ball Z is that. It's almost like it's like beyond anime at this point. Um and what's funny is that there isn't like one or two parts of Dragon Ball Z that's referred to in culture specifically. The whole thing is always referred to. Um, like even in just in the music world, like you get so many references to a lot of the villains in Dragon Ball Z and the heroes themselves. You know, Jaden Smith has a song Goku. Frank Ocean has a line Majin Buu. You know, like there's even a bunch of Frieza songs. Like there,
people talk about Vegeta too.
Yeah, even Vegeta.
Like Vegeta is one of the most beloved characters in all of anime.
Exactly. Yeah, and DBZ in terms of like the impact is just so damn strong, and its influence is so wide and far reaching that it would almost be a disservice to not consider it a classic show, because it's just done like so much for anime as a whole. Definitely had a big influence on bringing more people to the medium, as well as influencing shonen for for eternity. Like even now we still compare power systems and power up shows to Dragon Ball Z, you know? Like
I don't know why people do that. There's no
yeah, but
you can't compare them.
Well, of course, but it's like that just shows the impact of it, you know, and the staying power in a person's mind, to the point that it's Dragon Ball Z probably won't ever be forgotten by the masses as a whole. You know, it's bigger than the medium at this point. You know, I think more people know about Dragon Ball Z than they would about anime. Like
yes,
people would more so refer to Dragon Ball Z as a cartoon than an anime. Yeah, exactly. It's probably the most commercialized thing, you know, like up there with like anything that's considered a brand at this point, you know,
like Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's pretty much that. Pokemon. Yeah. And then classics, I would say the only and Samurai Champloo. You guys don't think that's a classic?
I haven't seen it yet.
I just want to talk about the reason I didn't make a classic list is because my list of classics would be so long. Like I think there's probably like a couple hundred classics.
This is just a couple.
Like literally like 200. I could make a list of 200 classics. I haven't seen all of them, but like there are just so many to me that I couldn't make a list. It would just be impossible.
Yeah. And
so I do think Samurai Champloo is a classic. That's one of the other things that was on my original must-watch list.
Yeah,
but I don't have a list.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. As long as you guys can kind of, I don't know, Samurai Champloo is like, it was like one of the first shows that did an episodic storytelling at that level and then maintained it throughout, you know, and it was I'm so sad. Like I thought Dororo was gonna be like it, but didn't turn out that way. And
unfortunately,
it kind of makes me cry.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever going to be a show like Samurai Champloo though. Like I've never seen anything like it. Like you have like this hip hop culture mixed with samurai. Like we
The
got
closest-
like shogi games going on.
Yeah, the closest thing we ever got was Afro Samurai, and
But Afro Samurai was so bad.
yeah, yeah, but
Sad.
it's
although RZA did the soundtrack, shout outs to the Riz. Oh my god,
Yo,
the soundtrack was great, but
that show was
the
for the
rest was
culture.
terrible.
The show was for the culture though, like 100%. And then Trigon goes on the classic list because it I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily tell everybody like you have to watch this, but it's just so damn good. Like it really dealt with like a lot of the themes that it presented in the show were pretty damn memorable, and I don't know, just the overall impact, and like I just really feel like a lot of people would enjoy this show as a whole. Obviously, you know, it came after, you know, Bebop, which is, you know, undisputed, but I still think it deserves its place. And and then, you know, pretty much the rest of the list. But the one thing I do want to touch on is Bake Monogatari, and it's definitely not for everyone, but I think everyone should at least see the first episode to see how well conversation is portrayed in this show, because I think conversation, or the pacing of conversation, is kind of hard for people to get down in anime, especially nowadays, because you get a lot of these awkward pauses and awkward transitions, and it kind of breaks you because you're like, that's not how you talk to someone, you know. But I think Bakemonogatari really captures that whole essence through and through, because like when you talk to someone, if you think about it, like you're not always just concentrating on one specific thing. You're getting distracted by like someone walking by, or you see something and it sparks a thought or like an image, even for just like a half second while you're having like a conversation, you know, like there's always these other distractions and things going on, and they visually represent that extremely well in this show. And I just think, if anything, like, yeah, it's not on the must watch, but I think you should at least watch the first episode of it. You know,
that's actually one of my pet peeves is every time people are describing Bakemonogatari, they're always like, "Oh, it's not for everyone." But I think it is for everyone. Like I'm not the biggest fan of the show, but like I really think it's a show for, like, it's super popular, super high rated. Yeah. It's not a controversial show, like in terms of the people's ratings at all. Really, it's like a consensus top show. I have a lot of problems with it that I won't get into right now, but I really disagree when people describe it that way. I feel like, not to insult you, Benji, but I feel like the fans want it to be a show that's not for everyone. Like they want to feel like Bakemono is like this show that they're like, you know, they like it, but most people don't. But most people do, is the fact of the matter. Yeah. Like most people do like, because it has really good animation, really good dialogue and storytelling, interesting characters. Like it doesn't really have really polarizing aspects to it.
Yeah, I think other seasons do, but that one, like, I am not the biggest Monogatari fan. I don't dislike Monogatari, but I don't love Monogatari either. But I liked Bakemonogatari.
Yeah,
right.
After that,
the only reason why I say it's not for anyone is not for everyone is because of how dialogue heavy it is, and coming off of a lot of very action and stylistic shows, I see this as off-putting. In the same way that, like, you'll have movies that are fantastic because the dialogue because they are dialogue heavy, and you really have to pay attention and focus in. Like, I just don't think that Bakemonogatari would be something that would have a mass appeal because of how much attention that it requires for you to focus on what they're saying, and the nuance that like occurs in the conversations between the two. But I mean, I could be wrong. I just base it off of like how fucking high My Hero Academia is on the goddamn charts. Like, people want the action, they want the cool, like, you know what I mean? But that
also clearly has mass appeal. It's number 48 most popular, number 89 highest rated. So like anything in the top 100, especially top 100 in both categories, that means it's for everyone.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that would be my reasoning why it isn't for everyone. I don't know. I've never really recommended it to anyone because I just didn't think they would like it, you know, because they would show distaste in certain, like the distaste of show tropes that people have expressed to me via me recommending them stuff. Bakemonogatari did those things, but who knows? Maybe it does it in a way that is attractive to people, um, like in some way. I don't know. That was my biggest thing because that almost turned me off from the show was how much talk. Like they just talked and talked and talked, and I was like, oh my god, you all just talked this whole time. And once I like paid attention and looked at what they were saying, I was like, wow, this is actually stupid good, you know. But you know, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. It's just I just didn't think it would have like such a mass appeal to, you know, the general mainstream of anime viewing, you know. But yeah, I still consider it like a classic. But I think I still need like 3 more seasons of Monogatari to get through to finish it all off.
A lot.
Yeah, it's
So I noticed that none of us really have a romance on our list, except I guess
I almost put one.
But my question to you guys is, what do you think is like the classic romance? Like, what do you think is which one?
Kimi ni Tadaki.
Okay.
That is, I almost put it on my list, so that would be.
Because I honestly couldn't decide. Because I was thinking like Clanad, but I think it's kind of influenced by when you got into anime. Like, because when I got into anime, like in terms of into the internet anime culture, so not just watching on my lonesome, like Clanad was huge.
Oh, it was like, huge when I started too.
That was the show to watch. Like I want to say it was like number 1, like the highest ranked show.
Yeah.
Because this is before Death Note was out. So yeah, it's like, you know, back in the day.
I would say Fruits Basket. And that's
no, I would have thought about that too.
That's just obviously because, like, recency bias, but
I mean, I would have. I mean, I've read the manga years ago, so I would have said that anyway. It is known as one of the classic.
But the original showing of it, I wouldn't recommend because I've seen from it.
No, I wouldn't.
2019, yes, so good. Like I'm enjoying it more than I probably should be. Like for someone who isn't into that genre of show, like oh my god, it's just I just absolutely love it, you know. And it'll probably
I mean 2019 is not a classic.
Well, I mean no because but the source materials like
the source materials from
it's from a long time ago, and they're just retelling the same exact source material, just updated visuals. So
they didn't finish the first anime.
Yeah, exactly. Like the show isn't completely done yet, so I can't say I've watched the whole thing and give it like a definitive. Yeah, I know Monster's on there, but that's based on a different set of criteria than I would attribute to Fruits Basket itself. Yeah. But anything on do you guys have anything you disagree with between these 3? I mean, I have one. I don't know about Waffles. These 3 lists for classic anime.
I'm very inclusive when it comes to classics. Wait, I have a follow-up question though. Do you guys think that do you think certain genres in anime are considered like lower quality or less of a classic okay, because our list would suggest that comedy and romance are those genres.
I just typed this up real quick because originally I had Gintama and I would have put Sailor Moon on here, but I haven't watched Sailor Moon. But I did have more of a variety on here. I just shortened the list for.
Yeah, I also think it's harder for those shows because a lot of what we picked is from a pretty good while back. Like the most recent show on this list is Steins Gate, you know. And in terms of like, you know, comedy and romance, it seems to be one of the more harder genres to really pin down and have a good impact when it comes to like really captivating your audience, because like Fruits Basket, for example, it needs this redoing of its animation and story to, at least for me, to really capture me, you know. And if I would have watched the OG one, I probably would have dropped it because of the animation. So I think now And I think it's also a natural progression when it comes to like things that are more captivating to like a mass audience. Like, you know, we're getting more and more like in the past couple years, like we've gotten a lot of comedy and romance that we would think is like fantastic, but I wouldn't just necessarily say classic like straight up, but they're definitely contenders for it, you know. But
so what you're saying, like, to me it sounds like you're saying that comedy and romance are less classic, to be honest, because the fact that we don't have those older shows, like,
it's just harder to do, you know.
I mean, it's partly that, but I also think people put less value in comedy and romance. Like when you look at another medium, like at movies, like the best movie of the year for the Oscars is almost never a comedy or a romance.
Yeah,
it's always just a straight, like, serious drama.
Yeah.
And I think we value serious dramas more. Like, yeah, Kuro, you said you just, you know, wrote it up quickly, but the fact
I had
that
Kimi Tadaki too.
But the fact that in the back of your head you're limiting it to this, you know, like when you're under pressure, that activates the stereotypes in your brain. You know, when you're on short time, you're gonna go with whatever you you know, you instinctually believe. And I believe it too. You know, I think I definitely place less value in those types of shows.
Well,
I think they're good for entertainment.
Yeah.
But I think we as an anime community put a lot less value, because there are great romances that are more classic, you know, like there's Toradora, Clanad, Anohana.
I don't even like this one.
It's just like off the top of my head. Yeah, maybe you don't like the.
No, I know they're classic. I would.
But those are classic romances.
Yes.
Yeah. I do want to say that UEC commented and said, Karashi, I can't pronounce it very well, Kanajo ni Jujo, and I have read that, and that was one of the first ones to come to my head for classic.
What is that?
Romance.
It
is. What's the English? It's His and Her Circumstances, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that and Fruits Basket were the first two classics to come in.
I also think part of the problem is that if you look at these genres and what we're looking at, right, the amount of obscurity or the amount of surrealism that these shows use don't really operate in reality, whereas comedy and romance more so do. So, like,
you have romances that take, like, Eureka 7 is a romance.
I would also just like to say that part of the reason I also didn't include some romance is because typically, I don't know, I kind of tried to limit this to just anime, and there's hardly a romance series that fully adapted the manga. And I would consider the manga more classic than most of their animes. Yeah. So that is also part of why I instinctively took them off. Like Kimi ni Tadaki's anime, I wouldn't consider classic, but I would consider the manga classic.
Right.
Most of them just don't finish, is the unfortunate circumstance of most romance.
Yeah,
anime.
that'd definitely be it too. But I mean, I just think that like comedy and romance, like we can experience that on a day-to-day. You know, I can't experience getting into a giant fully armored robot and then flying away to fight a foreign invasion, you know. So and things that we are more prone to on a day-to-day, we're probably going to be a little bit more critical and, you know, kind of not really think too much of it, you know. But that's I don't know, that's probably part of the reason why our lists are that the way they are, you know.
Right. I can see that.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and well, let's see if we've touched on how are these. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So, how were the classics viewed before? So, I guess we can frame it as, were any of these shows bad at the time? Like, do you guys think any of these things when they first came out were considered just not good at all?
No.
I don't think so. Not bad per se, but people did not like Evangelion when it first came out.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah,
it has very mixed reviews.
It was just really controversial. Like, it was a very large mix of both.
Right. Whereas now it's not like that, and I think a lot of the shows on my list are like that. Like, well, not a lot, but the more psychological shows I think tended to be like that back in the day, like Perfect Blue and Lane. I've also heard that they were not received extremely well.
I could see that, yeah.
Perfect Blue wasn't. Now I know that for a fact.
Yeah. And I think that's just because back in those days, psychological anime was very abrasive to people. Like I said, the first time I watched Evangelion, I didn't like it. And I think it takes a while to kind of adapt your mind to be able to appreciate psychological elements in anime. But now those, cult classic. I kind of disagree with the term cult classic. I just like to call it a classic. But yeah, now all these have like cult followings, and they're extremely well regarded.
Yeah,
but
I don't think there's anyone on here that isn't.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sometimes when you're completely changing things up.
And by the way, these lists that we have up on here aren't like our full list. Like we could probably add a lot more.
Yeah.
This is just really off the cuff, like things we just thought of like on the spot, because those are just like these are what we're gonna tell to people when they ask us this question, like right off the bat. You know.
And that question though, the how were the classics viewed before, that question, it was meant to be more like the classics as a whole. So like basically the question is asking, back say like 15 years ago, how do you feel like the anime community viewed the classics? Like
probably the same. Oh well, okay, well Steins Gate didn't exist.
I think that
I don't think Bakemonogatari. Yeah. Well, I don't know, because we were getting a lot of the same quality of shows, right, on a year to year.
Small, but less numbers, so they paid more attention to those classic ones. I feel like just because now there's, as we've talked about, so much like saturation of different animes, it's easy to forget about one that was just really good.
Well, I mean,
there's also most new anime fans, I feel like, are not as concerned about watching the classics, because there's plenty to watch that's coming out now that is good enough.
Yeah, I don't think people even really considered classics 15 years ago, right? Like, it was just anime, because there was so little of it.
No, I think 15 years ago, the classics were just like a different set of shows. Like, because classics would be considered more shows that came out in like the early 90s, late 80s, maybe even the 70s. You know, shows like Ashita no Joe and Captain Harlock. Yeah, Rose of Versailles. Like, those were more classics. But still, there were people like me, you know, back 15 years ago. So we're talking like 2004, who have like a smaller time span. So shows like Bebop and Evangelion were still looked at classics like back in those days. But I think classic had a like Kuro said, a different value. I think because there was just less available, like it's really hard to watch anything that wasn't a classic, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to watch an old show and it wasn't, you know, consensus classic, good luck, because you're not going to be able to find it. Nowadays, everything is on the internet. It's great. But back in those days, like there was no such thing as streaming video. You know, if you wanted to watch a show, it either had to be on TV, you had to find a torrent with a ton of seeders because the internet was slow, or you had to like buy the VHS tape. And good luck finding it if it's not like a cult classic, because they weren't even in production.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't even think I think that that discussion was happening in very, very small circles and very, very niche places on the internet. I think
because those circles didn't really exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we didn't have My Anime List or Kitsu. We had 4chan, which it started in 2004. That's actually when I got on 4chan.
Yeah.
And they were talking about anime, but I don't know. I agree that it's a niche, but I mean, it's still a pretty big community. So that's how I informed my knowledge of like what it was. And anime in general was looked at very differently.
Yeah.
Which Erza just said no social anime. Yeah, no social anime watchers too, because you could not, like in 2004, you couldn't tell people that you watched anime.
Yeah, exactly. Word of mouth was the exact way to do it. But I would say there was social anime, but they were very limited and they weren't even really regarded as anime. So that would be like the Dragon Ball Z, the Narutos, the Inuyashas, you know, these things that pretty much whatever came on Toonami. that was it. Like whatever came on Adult Swim, like those were the social quote unquote shows. I guess, you know, the things that I remember talking about with my friends at school, which was Dragon Ball Z and what's it called, and Naruto all the time, freaking out when I found out Naruto used the Rasengan. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. And then Sasuke has his own Chidori. Oh my god, like I freaked out. Right. You know, I was like, that's amazing. You know,
but something I'll say about that though is like it was cool if they were on TV, but then if you told people that they were anime, like a lot of people didn't even know that was anime. And if you told them you watched it in Japanese, people would be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. I didn't even know how to watch it. Dude, the day that I found out you could stream anime online was like one of the greatest days ever. Like I remember specifically where I was 12 years old. I was sitting in a math class and my friend is telling me all this stuff that's happening in Naruto that hasn't even come close to airing here at the States. And I'm like, where did you see this? He's like, online. My life changed from there on. Okay. I was like, oh my God, this is thank you, internet. So
your whole family gets mad at you because suddenly the internet slows down in your house because you're torrenting all the time.
Exactly. Oh, I didn't even know about torrenting. I lived vicariously through AMVs on YouTube.
Me too.
I just watched those of all the new content. Okay, so what else were they talked about? I think we kind of hit on that, right? If they were talked about a lot. What about now? Has the definition of classic changed? Do people still watch them? Yeah, people still watch them a lot. Like
I'm watching them.
If we're watching them now. Yeah, I would say there isn't any slowdown in.
I disagree heartily. I think people put a much lower emphasis on watching the classics because of the things that I was talking about. Because back in the day, that was all you could watch was classics. Now it's very common that you meet people who are a new anime fan and they haven't seen anything older than like 2014.
Well, okay, that
is very common.
No, hold on. I would say that is more so a symptom of anime. Like there isn't a mainstream social anime network, and Twitter's fault. Okay, every single one of these threads, they just all they do is recommend My Hero. Like
no, it's true.
There's other shows out. Like what the hell's your like? Okay, so like I asked, so I had this friend of mine, right? She when she got into anime, which was like pretty like within the past year or two, she said she would have to Google what anime should I watch and look like on Yahoo Answers to find what she should watch. You know, like if these people came on like Kitsu or Mal, like they would get recommended the classics if they're like newer anime fans.
I don't know. I see Kitsu threads all the time where people are like, what should I watch? And like, oh, you should really check out this show called 7 Deadly Sins.
No. Okay. See, that's when I go in the comments and then I tell them why they're all wrong. And then I show them what
But then you recommend old stuff and they look it up and they're like, oh, this is old. I don't want to watch this.
Yeah, Waffles has tagged me in some and I recommend things.
I haven't seen that reaction. Oh, this is old, so I didn't watch it.
They don't say it out loud. Or like they don't type it, but they just don't watch it. Like you recommend people classic shows and they just don't watch them because they're old.
Well, hopefully people change their minds then when they listen to this goddamn podcast, okay? Go out there. Stop being
like Kuro is not the typical anime viewer. That's all I'll say. Like Kuro is young and she's watching shows that are older than her.
I am.
And that's not very typical for a new anime fan. So kudos to you.
Anyway. You know what? We need to make a new movement then. Classic watch. That's what we need. We need a fucking classic watch. Okay. We need to
that's what my club is about.
Okay, you know, I get it. But it's like
movement already, Benji.
Like you have you guys watched Samurai Champloo? Have you watched, like, apart from Evangelion, have you watched anything on these lists?
Lane.
That's it. I've watched 2.
We've only watched
except for Shampoo.
We just started our 4th anime. Give us some time.
No. Fuck you. This is I want to be right. So, okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, that's next one.
I'm currently not even finished one of my classics. I'm almost finished.
I feel it. Cool. Well, we pretty much, was there anything else you guys wanted to touch on from anything? Any outstanding
I wanted to talk about
potential
potential. Okay.
Upcoming classics. I made a list
of
what I believed are potential classics that are too young now to determine, but
Okay, I'm gonna try to disagree with you on every single one of these.
yeah, some of them is just personal. Like, this is a classic for me. But there are two specifically that I think I put exclamation points next to that I'm 100% will be classics.
Do you guys think that that's even a thing? Classic for me? Can that even really be a thing? Isn't that?
What do you mean classic forming?
No, classic for me.
So like a non-consensus classic.
Oh no, I mean it would be a consensus classic. It's just since it's not.
Okay, I was just
too young right now.
Yeah.
You might not think it's a classic yet.
Yeah.
I think it is because like, you know, everyone has a slightly different definition of what is a classic.
Yeah, like all these fit my.
Wouldn't that just be like, if it's a classic for you, wouldn't that just be a must watch?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's some series, like one of my favorite series I didn't put on either of my lists because I don't necessarily think it reached all of my personal criteria for
heck yeah.
classic
And general franchise in the chat, yeah, heck yeah, keep pushing Outlaw Star, keep pushing those old school animes. People need to learn. People need to know what's up.
A lot of people have been watching Outlaw Star recently.
I've
seen them in
Madoka's not there because Madoka's already a classic.
Yeah, I mean, okay, obviously we would probably all consider, I mean, would any of us disagree Madoka not being a classic?
I actually have it on my upcoming classic list, but just not upcoming, but I have it on like my new classic list.
Did you want me to post yours too?
It would be on that teetering from like, is it old enough? I think it is.
I think it is old enough.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I actually cut off of my must-watch list too. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, I think everyone should watch Madoka Magica.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a must-watch just yet, but I do think everyone should watch it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Yui, but I said like 5 to 6 is okay.
And then to touch on Rakugo, I've heard a lot of praise about it. I just could not watch it, man. I was so bored. Like,
Rakugo is probably the number one that I would consider an incoming classic, just because when I first watched it, it also took me a very long time to get into it. Like, I'm pretty sure it took me 2 months to watch the first 5 episodes. But once I finished the 5 episodes, it instantly became one of my favorites.
Yeah. Which was kind of the feeling I got when I first, because I actually watched the episode as it premiered. And at the time, because this came out,
what was it, like 2014? I want to say.
No, it came out 2016.
Yeah,
that's why I said it's too young. It's way too young.
The first season?
Yeah.
Yes, and second season was 2017.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, it was. But I've heard like
it feels older. That's why.
Well, I mean, 2014 still isn't old. Let's be honest.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, when I went to go find the series because I had seen the second season being hyped, I was like, oh. First of all, when I'd seen the second season being hyped, I didn't know it had just come out. I just saw it pop up in high ratings on my anime list. And I had assumed it was not an old series, but an older series, 2010 or 11, 12. And when I found out it was 2016, 2017, I was like, what? Like, the story and, like, the way it's told just does not feel like an anime that I would have seen from this era. And that, basically... Yeah. The ones I have exclamation points next to, Threegatsu and Rakugo, both just feel very different, whether people do like them or not. I think
what's funny is that I would put Rakugo in the same area as Monster, where, like, just by the acclaim it's gotten.
Yes.
It's like I would probably, like, in a couple years. Yeah, most definitely. Which it's funny.
Rakugo's 100% the number one.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, from listening to this podcast, I feel like we could do a whole thing on, like, recommendations in specific genres. We would say, like, okay, you gotta watch these. Like, if you're a fan of horror, you need to watch these 3 shows for fucking sure,
Right.
But that's another topic for another day. Man, we just get all the topics while we're talking. We have so many. If someone's better,
Ghibli Wars.
Kuro, did you write this down, Kuro? Ghibli Wars.
Yes,
okay,
no worries, I've got this.
Okay.
Why are you picking her, Benji? That's sexist. You just make the girl be the secretary. Is that what's happening?
No, I make the most responsible one the secretary, which is clearly not Waffles. But anyways.
But yeah, both Rakugo and Threegatsu, when I had first watched them, were both series that definitely felt different from the majority of other series that came out around their times in 2016, 2017. I put Devilman Crybaby just because its source material is classic. And it's redo was very well done, and also was the first time in a couple of years that we've had a really gaudy, dark story like that come out. So it was a big impact, and I think it'll probably be a classic.
Can I contest you on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, it's not denying that the original source material is a classic. So.
Well, here's the thing: is that I don't think it's timeless. I think
You don't think Devilman is timeless?
no. So the reason for that is the story itself doesn't hold up so well that I would take anything that comes after it as being equal to or lesser. I think the story of Devilman Crybaby is the majority of the time worse than things that have come after it that kind of use the same type of narrative when they're telling their stories.
That might be personal taste though, because I thought Devilman was
yeah, well, I mean, it very well might be, but
yeah. Also, just because the director is a very good.
I did like the visuals
director.
though. I did like the visuals. Like I thought it was a cool show. The story just did not do it for me.
But it feels like it may modernly be like a. I mean, like I said, the source material is old and already like established as whether like in the way it influenced the medium, just because there wasn't anything like it when it came out, and a lot of things inspired after it. But like I feel like the controversy around Devilman now sounds so much similar to the controversy. Not that I'm comparing the two, because I think Neon Genesis is a all-time classic, and Devilman I don't think would ever compare to it. But I'm just saying that it seems divided like Neon Genesis may have been when it first came out, as well as people either don't like it or do like it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not disputing the art or the ending. What I'm saying is that because Evangelion did what it did, Devilman Crybaby is kind of in a bad spot because it's so overshadowed so much. Like it's very hard for it to really pick itself back up by virtue of its own
maybe just because
storytelling, you know?
Yeah, maybe just because I go into it thinking like this came out before Neon Genesis, like its source material came out before Neon Genesis, so I didn't really think about Neon Genesis.
Yeah,
better,
which
because
what I will say though, I 100% respect and love what it did for the genre. I just don't really consider it a classic. I would consider it more of a must watch. I mean, my opinion may change over time, but I would consider it more of a must watch for people who like this type of show. You know, one of the like these world ending philosophical type shows.
Masaki Yuasa is kind of known as a classic director for Tatami Galaxy and Ping Pong and other shows. So I just think because he did this and it is based on a classic manga, that it's just very well. It was anime of the year. That really kind of gives it up a. Not that I think it should have been anime of the year, but I'm just saying that gives it that extra push. But the other three I just put that may already be considered classics. I'm not really sure. They're in that weird timeline where I'm not sure if it's been long enough yet.
Yeah.
To consider them, but I would, just because again, I feel those last three feel very different from some of the other ones. They stick out more from the years that they came out.
Yeah, the only ones I've seen is Barakamon. Why would you consider it that? Like, I'm not I guess I should state my stance on it is I hate that genre. Like, not that I hate it, but I'm very unlikely I'm ever gonna watch anything from that type of show. This pulled me. I don't know how it did it. Like I would need to examine it a bit more, but it was. I was like, why am I watching this? Like, why?
It's good.
Exactly.
I put it on here.
But the fact was that at the time I absolutely hated that genre of show, but I could not stop watching it. Like it was, oh my god! Like it's the same thing with like Fruits Basket. I'm not a fan of the romance genre, but it's doing something and it's killing it every single week, and it keeps me coming back, like to the point where I'm craving it, you know. But
yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of slice of life, and I still think it's above and beyond most of them, just because it does have that universe like range. I don't know anyone who's seen Barakamon that didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people, because there's people like that for everything, but I just have not met someone. Of course, there's our person.
I'm not surprised Waffles dropped it.
But a majority of people tend to really like Barakamon.
So is Your Lie on April here? Okay, so it's like the only music one I've really seen so far.
Yeah.
Is it on there because of how good it is as a music anime, but because of how it is just as an anime? As an anime. I think,
again, it's 2014, so that might still be too soon. That's why it's, again, teetering. But I don't know, Your Lie in April's story sticks out to me more than a lot of others in its genre, not even just the music genre. I mean, a lot of artists, like manga artists, praise Your Lie in April. It's a pretty unique, it's very well written in terms of well-roundedness, and I just think that it set itself apart from a lot of the other ones that came out around its time.
Yeah. And then the last one is I don't know how to say that.
Chihafu.
Yeah, just had to make sure we said all these on the list for audio listeners.
Yes.
I feel like we haven't been acknowledging them, but we've been doing it accidentally.
We love you, audio listeners.
Yeah, we've been doing it accidentally because
really
we've been saying them all. And then so if you're listening to this audio, we've pretty much said all the names that pop up on the screen, so you haven't missed out on anything. But if you want to see them, you just go to the YouTube.
I want to say a quick thing about Your Lie in April. That anime, like the reception that it's gotten, not the anime itself, it bothers me so much. I hate it so much because it took the spot of Beck. Like Beck had the game on lock. Okay,
stories.
I know they're different. Okay, I get that they're different, realm. But the way that they're treated is exactly the same. Because Beck used to be the go-to classic music anime for everyone. Everyone coming in was like, what should I watch if I like music anime or if I like music in general? And people were like, Beck or Samurai Champloo. But like, oh my God, now no one ever talks about Beck. Like I can't remember the last time I've heard it spoken about.
Beck.
Luckily, Benji just watched the first half of it yesterday. That was awesome. But like people are not watching Beck anywhere near the way they used to be, and it used to be such a big popular anime, but now it's just all Your Lie in April. That's all anyone wants to talk about.
Because it's good.
I dropped it so hard. I don't like the anime, but that's not even what I'm talking about. Okay.
Oh my God.
I also
that it pushed Beck out of the space. Now Beck's not even in the conversation.
It just confuses me that, like, I don't know. I don't like lumping music anime together because most of them, like, depending on the genre of music it depicts, the entire story is different.
Well, I'm gonna make a controversial statement. I think Carole and Tuesday is the next classic and standard for music anime. There, I said it. I don't give a at me. Come at me. Find me on Twitter.
But yeah, it's just like, you know, series music anime like Your Lie in April, for example, that do like classical music, Hibiki Euphonium that does like band music, like they're very different from like something like Nana, Carole and Tuesday, Beck, who do like rock or pop or other types of music that are more industry based. Their stories are just very, very different. So I just don't like when people compare all of them in general, because
they don't get compared. That's what I'm talking about, though. They're not getting compared. It just took over the space. Like, they're not getting compared back in Your Lie in April. What's happening is people just aren't talking about Beck because they're talking about Your Lie in April.
I don't know if that's really why.
If you guys agree with Waffles, you can donate to buy him a webcam.
You could.
Also, oh no, go ahead. You go first.
Half of Waffles' list I also was going to put on mine, actually, so I just find it interesting.
Nice. I just made that list right now while you were talking about yours.
Yeah, which I want to go over that real quick, but I want to say, hey, Zombieland Saga. Okay, I
my Beck poster.
If there was ever a a genre of anime that I could do without. It's the idol genre. But
Yes.
I really liked Zombieland Saga a lot. Like a lot. It's one of the most surprising shows I've seen in the past year. Not because the story is surprising, but because the narrative that they spun in the beginning took a 180 at the end of each episode. And I was like, what? There's actual character development and like depth to these characters. And I was like, what the heck? So if you guys ever watch an idol show, watch Zombieland Saga. I don't know if I would ever consider it a classic. Like I think the CG hurt it too much, but I would say it's a must watch if you're just a fan of like just anime music in general, because it's they do a couple songs that are pretty good, but especially if you like idol shows, I think it's one of the, like, I would consider it a good one, definitely up there. Which I should get a Beck poster, dude. I'm loving that show, by the way. Like,
I'm so glad.
Oh my God, it's so good. Which, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna make me feel when I watch. I don't even want to say the shows anymore. I keep getting shit for it. Anyways, let's go over.
None of us have seen K-On! Yet, Yui.
Is K-On! Post? I don't even know anything about K-On! When did K-On! come out? Is it post 2014?
Possibly. I don't actually remember.
I feel like it's 2009.
Okay, I know people are gonna complain about, oh, there's no Hibiki Euphorium, there's no K-On! Okay, look, those shows like have not been recommended to me other than by the people who love them like with all their heart. I'm not even kidding you. Like I keep getting recommendations for other things, like, but not that. So, but I'm going to watch.
It's not that popular.
Yeah, I'm going to watch
Hibike.
them.
K-On! Is decently popular, but I honestly don't get recommended it much either. But people know I just don't. I'm not into cute things. So.
Yeah, of course. But
I'm a little surprised at your first entry, Waffle.
Okay, so these are the things I think are new classics. I don't even think any of these are. Maybe Made in Abyss is the only one that is a question mark, but the rest of them I think are almost guaranteed to become classics.
What? You would think Made in Abyss is like the given.
Yeah, that's the
okay.
One
Hold on. Let's go down the list one by one. One Punch Man.
So One Punch Man is almost already a classic. Like, it's that big and that well received.
Yes.
Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I think it's just unquestionable that it's going to be a classic.
It's definitely transcending itself. Like, it's going beyond anime.
It's on another level.
Yeah, season 1. We're not talking about season 2. We're not talking about season 2. Season 1.
We're not.
Season 1.
I think season 1 can be watched as a standalone. I don't think it needed another season.
No.
But the manga readers, they all really wanted that second season because the source material is so good. But you got to realize when you get another season of anything, you're playing Russian roulette every time, because you never know how it's going to, be adapted, and you never know when it's going to get canceled, and you might get cut off right in the middle before you get a good ending. So I'm just throwing it out there because I thought season 1 ended pretty well. I thought it would have been a good conclusion, but oh well. Next one is Your Name. And these movies always get talked about together, so I'll talk about it together. Your Name and A Silent Voice. Even though they're very different, I think A Silent Voice is the far superior movie, personally.
Me too.
I don't even think it's close.
Why'd I do that?
And like, A Silent Voice has one of the best mangas in the game. A lot of people think the movie is worse just because the manga is so good. I don't agree with that mentality at all, by the way. Like, that doesn't even make sense.
You're gonna hate. You guys are gonna hate my opinion. Just because the movie
is worse than the manga doesn't make the movie bad. Like, that doesn't make sense. It's still incredible. But yeah, both of those movies I think are gonna stand the test of time. I agree. I can't possibly see them falling off. Then Made in Abyss was. I feel like people forget this, but for the first like half of the season, like, no one was talking about it. No one wanted to watch it because they thought it was like this little cute kind of slice of life show with like little lollies.
That's true.
I was someone who I watched like, I think the first episode, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then I read like the whole manga. And so I was like, man, this is going to get good. The pacing of the anime, I don't really like much. I feel like it's a show where the manga is really good, but the thing about the source material for Made in Abyss is it's disgusting. It's like really disgusting, like on a perverted level and on like a gory, disgusting, like cringy level. So I think the anime is doing a really good job of tempering that down. Like the anime has made it a lot less disgusting, a lot less disturbing. So I'm interested to see how they take the upcoming arcs, because they're a lot more disturbing than the ones they've shown so far. But I think that's another one that's going to be a classic, even if we just look at the first season that's come out. Then my next two are, and the reason I put a question mark on Made in Abyss is because it doesn't have a conclusion. So if the second season ends up sucking, or the movie, whatever, I could see it not becoming a classic. That's the only one, because these next two are already concluded and they're definitely have great conclusions, which is Violet Evergarden, which is the most recent entry onto this list.
I was going to put that on mine too.
Yeah, and that one, I mean, just everything on it is such high level, and it really stood above the rest of the stuff that came out last year. I mean, I didn't put it as my best for the year, but I just think the way that it was received, it was almost like an instant classic, the way that it was talked about.
Me too.
Yeah. And then Ping Pong is, I feel like it used to get talked about a lot more. So this one might not become a classic because of the way that I've seen it fall off. I'll still consider it a classic. And I think
Usa, so.
It's a what?
It's Masaki Usa, so it might not fall off.
Masaki USS?
Masaki Usa, the director, he also did Devilman. He's a big director, so it might not fall off because he's relatively old. People
might be going back to see it. But it used to get talked about like a lot more than it does right now. But I think it's one of those anime that, like, it's similar to Tatami Galaxy. I saw someone talking about it in the chat, where like it has a really big cult following. Like the people who love it, they really love it. Like I've seen people wearing Ping Pong merch. Like people have the little blue shirt with the star on it. That
those are all Masaki Uesa.
Oh, he has that in his other shows too. Is that right?
Tatami Galaxy. Ping Pong.
Oh, that's another show by him.
It's all by him. Yeah.
I didn't even know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they have the same followings.
Yeah. So I think it's, to me, I think it'll definitely become a classic. I think it was so different in the way that things were animated. Granted, it is animated in a slightly similar way to Tatami Galaxy, now that you mention it. But still, it's very unique. And it's like, it's a sports anime that doesn't really talk about the sport. You know, it's just the sport serves as a vehicle, which I think is always cool to see. There aren't that many of those. It's like ping pong and cross game, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely going to become a classic.
We'll start off by saying I liked Your Name more than Silent Voice. Fight me. And
why am I not surprised?
1,000% on Violet Evergarden. Hey, it's not my fault one knows how to tell a story and the other doesn't. So Violet Evergarden, like I
such a funny joke.
Yeah, I 100% agree with potential classic. Like, there's not anything on that list that I would disagree with. Although I have not seen Ping Pong, and I definitely will. Which Kuro,
you need to see.
Kuro, another podcast topic. We go head to head on things we whatever that word is with a V disagree on.
Me and you are fighting over One Piece so hard.
I mean, I don't think
I already see it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll go toe to toe. All right.
Well, you don't hate One Piece.
I don't hate One Piece. Yeah, vehemently. Okay. Phone. Shut up. Okay. Thank you, Anmag. Appreciate you. You're awesome. Okay. So I did my own. Haha. Benji's classics that I think were incoming classic, right? Bacano.
Bacano's already a classic.
I mean, I don't think most people would consider it. I mean, I'm just more so endorsing it at this point. Like, I love Bacano. Like, I love that show so freaking much.
A classic already.
If it's not, this is just my ticket in saying it damn well should be.
Also, Parasite, I also consider a classic already.
Came out in 2014. So that's why I'm following the same. But Hinamatsuri, that show did comedy, like, it was Konosuba level of quality, but I think it even went beyond that. You know,
I'm really worried about Hinata. So I was thinking about that one, but I feel like it's gonna fall off.
I hope
I
it
feel like it's
doesn't.
already fallen off, to be honest.
I think it'll be treasured. Like as long as season 2 comes out eventually, I don't think we'll have a problem there. But who
Comedy
knows?
shows, it's like we were talking about before, though. Comedy shows struggle so much
Yeah.
to
But
maintain.
appreciate all the love for Bacano in the chat. Thank you. Hey, let's push Bacano. That's the
is
next.
good.
Let's get Bacano. Waffles. Have I ever recommended you anything? Legit.
To be honest, I don't think you have.
I haven't.
I don't
But
think
what did I recommend you?
I guess you're recommending me Bacano right now?
No. Remember, I told you about it after I finished it. I told you how
Oh yeah, you did.
I've
did.
only
You told me that
recommended
thought
you.
I would love it.
I
Yeah.
love Bacano.
I've only recommended you Bacano. Okay, that is. Oh my god. And then
Okay, well, Angmang, you gotta keep pushing it. We're gonna bring
Do
it
it.
back. We're gonna make Bacano happen.
I'm changing my profile picture to Bacano stuff. I'm changing
This is
everything.
the Bacano Renaissance.
Everything's
right
gonna
now.
become Bacano for me.
I
You know.
just want to.
okay.
Do Stars on my first, but I had a comment on that.
No, I was gonna say Sadazame. I Sadazame is on this list. Yeah, it just literally finished airing, but it took my favorite show, one of my favorite shows, Kiz Naiver, and it did it 10 times better. And I love shows that touch on the human condition, especially the relationship aspect, and then question it and turn it on its head. You know, so I think in the long run, as long as this show gets some, like, I guess the cult following, which I think it does have, I think it could definitely be a mainstay in terms of classics.
Well, it's got Ikuhara.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I worry that it won't. I want it to be a classic very badly, but Ikuhara has other older works. Though I would consider Utena a classic. I think that's pretty
definitely.
well popular. But Penguin Drum is pretty old, and I might consider it a classic, but it doesn't really have that big a following.
And
So
Penguin
now
Drum
okay.
was a show that was also really big. It was very similar to Stars on My, where
That's
like
why, yeah.
when it was airing, like I remember everyone, like when I was in college at the time, and I remember everyone was talking about it, like, oh my god, this is new Ikuhara show, like it's so much of a mind fuck, it's awesome, this is a new classic, and now like it doesn't get watched
No one
that
talks
much.
about it.
Yeah.
People only talked about it because he was doing another work. But so that's what I'm
It
worried.
is one of my favorite shows, though. I love Penguin Drum. Like I think that's my number 3 on my favorites list. So like I love that show, but I feel like it's not really a consensus type of classic show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then well, I'm gonna skip Death Parade for a sec, but Parasite, like why this needs to be on so much more people's radars and lists. It's
Even though it's 2014, I already consider it a classic.
oh my
just
god,
'cause
it is so
everybody regards it so well.
so good. Like it's so good. Like oh my god, I
Benzi's
it's
turning
so
into a valley
good.
girl. Oh my god.
Yes, watch Parasite. It was so good. Okay, and then finally Death Parade. I've been referencing that show so much more because people keep liking this bullshit show called Angels of Death. I don't know what the fuck it's called. That show is terrible. I'm sorry. If you like it, that's fine. But to me, that show is complete garbage. Watch Death Parade. That is a good way. Like I lose words saying how much better it is. Like forget that. Watch Death Parade. Death Parade is a very well done show that really touches on and questions, death and, the idea of living and what it means and a lot of morality issues. And it's like, oh man, it just like, can we get a round of applause for how good Death Parade is? And then can we get a boo for Angels of Death? Cause wow, so good.
I haven't
Haven't
watched
seen
Death
either.
Parade. Yeah, but I've never heard anything bad about it. Like everybody,
And a lot of people talk about it still. Like it's definitely something that's held up. It's when it come out, winter 2015.
Yeah.
So it's already 4 years and change old.
And the opening is a banger.
Yes.
And it's holding strong. It is holding very strong. So I would say, honestly, the safest picks on here, I think, are Death Parade and Parasite.
And Bacano.
Bacano's already classic.
Bacano's already classic.
Right.
2008.
Right. I think Hinamatsuri and Sarazanma, I think I applaud you, Benji, for making the risky picks.
Mm-hmm.
Mine were definitely, mine are super safe. Mine are golden.
Like I probably would have said yours if you didn't say them.
Right. But yeah, Hinamatsuri and Sarazanma, I think, are semi-risky. I don't know. It's so hard for a comedy, and then it's really hard for an anime that talks about butt stuff. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but it's 2019, man. Things change.
That's true. The
Tell me-
times
tell
are
me
changing.
One gay anime that's a classic.
Yeah, with the gay.
Is it one?
Yeah, it's a gay anime for everyone. You know.
Is Free a classic? I don't know.
It's not canonly gay. Yuri on Ice is
come
not
on.
considered.
Come on.
It's
Free-
not canon.
Free is as gay as Sarazanmai.
I haven't even
Well, I
seen
guess Sarazanmai has more canon gay stuff.
They
but-
kiss.
Yeah, it's just a peck though, and it's not consensual.
No, not just that part.
I haven't seen the
Forgetting
last
about the
4
whole other-
episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very behind. I need to
Anyways,
finish. the
Forget
whole
about the
series.
gay cops.
all right. Well, it's been 2
They're not
hours.
gay. The cops aren't gay.
Yeah, they are.
They're so not gay.
Oh yeah.
You are behind.
Whatever. Anyways, in lieu of Waffles' failing gate art, let's go ahead and wrap it up because we've been talking for 2 hours at this point.
Ooh.
That literally flew by. Man, this was so much fun. Oh man, I forgot about. You know what? We're just gonna skip the rants for this week. I think we've ranted enough for this episode. So, and I think we're gonna do yearly review again next week. Do you guys know what we're going
Sure.
to?
Sure,
Yeah,
why not?
yeah. So
Are we doing 2011? Is that what we were
I want to do
planning
2011.
on?
you want to do 2011?
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll-
2011 next week. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, we'll do 2011. So yearly review next week for 2011, and then I don't know if you guys want to do a seasonal closeout since it's pretty much over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and man, yes, you will see.
Oh yeah,
you
we
will
deliver
see that.
We are planning.
You will
it.
see that. I will 2v1 your ass. I'm gonna go Super Saiyan 3. You're gonna see.
You can't handle this, Benji.
Oh, I can handle all of it. I've already handled it twice this weekend. Okay.
You think you could take both of us? At the
Yes.
same
Yes. I'm damn sure. I'm damn sure.
See, I back down way too easily, so.
Ultra Instinct Benji, thank you. That is exactly what I'm about to be. I just can't wait. We'll save that for another one. That's another juicy topic we can put aside. Which thanks, this chat has been amazing. Like you guys have provided us
thank you so much.
content
chat.
for the next
Thank
3
you.
months. Like we just
Yes.
have so many ideas from y'all. So thank you. And like especially if you guys are already on Kitsu, like we see you. We appreciate you. And if you guys
We
want
see you.
to,
We love you.
yeah, and if you guys want to see more info, like I said, look in the panels at the bottom of this or in the description of this video or whatever this is on. Anyways,
the general, mostly me.
sure. Shout out to General
The general.
Franchise.
Thank you for your car insurance, by the way. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
1-800 General now. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap this up. That has been the classic and must watch cast thing, whatever it's called. And this will be available on every single podcast platform and YouTube within whenever I get it up. So hopefully tomorrow. Anyways, appreciate and love y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think, what you disagreed with. Give us more topics, more questions. If you guys give me questions before the podcast, I will answer them. And then follow us on Twitter for what's the oh shit, we have a Twitter now.
It is at anime soc 1. I don't remember.
Wait, hold on. Wait, it's in the chat. Hold on one sec. Twitter.
I mean, I just...
There it is. There's our Twitter. We're gonna start. We have not been using this.
I tweeted on it.
Oh, I meant for like to announce.
I was gonna say I'm
We're falling apart, guys.
Okay. As you can obviously see, we need some work. So there it is. Follow Anime Social One. We're gonna start announcing the podcast topics on here, and then you guys can send us questions or topic ideas, and then we can use them on the podcast as well. So yeah, follow us there. That's like our main point of
Thank
contact.
you, Ang Nang. I will.
Yeah.
indeed.
Yes.
So
Go to sleep.
so Kuro needs to get some damn sleep because he's been up for too damn long.
36 hours now.
Exactly.
I'm not even tired now.
Oh, and then I want to tease. We're gonna do another series, but it's gonna be an in-depth series review, and that is pending.
Ooh.
We're gonna start. Because we hear you, EU people. Okay, fuck. Okay, I get it. This is like we're America. Okay, we're doing the American thing. We're gonna do a EU friendly series, in-depth review series thing within the next coming weeks. And then we can have more inclusion for our people across the pond. So that'll be dope. Anyways, appreciate y'all. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. Y'all better say fucking bye. You guys never say bye. So when I say bye, say bye. Okay, ready? Bye.
Bye.
Bye.